Hello, and thank you for tuning into an exciting conversation today about the ever-changing world of automotive and mobility, or should I say ever-accelerating world of automotive and mobility. My name is Masa Hasegawa from Deloitte Consulting, and I'll be moderating a panel of innovators in the industry around the topics of digital retailing, electrification, and mobility. Now, to tee things up, the past several years, Deloitte has been conducting global automotive consumer studies. The latest study, which was released earlier this year, summarized over 24,000 responses across 23 countries, and among many things highlighted some interesting trends and sentiments. For example, we know that digital retailing and how consumers interact with manufacturers and dealers during their shopping phase is becoming more and more online. And even though the long-term trajectory towards pure virtual sales process may exist, consumers are saying not so fast, as many still prefer and value the quote-unquote human touch, the in-person buying experience. This indicates to us that the speed and convenience of online interface is real, but at the same time, consumers are really looking for that right blend or balance of online and in-person experience. The physical experience to touch, feel, smell, and drive is still a critical part of this overall experience. Next, another insight that we draw from this year's survey is about the electrification trend. With an ever-increasing product choices in electric vehicles, and when I say that, it's not just about battery EVs, but hybrids, plug-in hybrids, fuel cells, and the like, innovative mobility solutions, and all of which to challenge the collective conventional thinking and status quo, we are moving closer to a market tipping point. But our data tells us that we cannot forget about the regional market nuances, perhaps a combination of consumer sentiments, economic packages, including government involvement to define affordability and even infrastructure readiness. Again, the complete report can be found at deloitte.com/autoconsumers. Let me welcome today's panelists. Aaron Horowitz from Auto Leadstar, David Green from Link & Co., and Danny Shavit from David Lubinsky Limited. Why don't I let each of you introduce yourselves? Let's start with Aaron.
Thank you so much, Mas. It's a pleasure to be here, everyone. My name is Aaron Horowitz. I'm the CEO of Auto Leadstar, a Jerusalem and Miami-based company that's transforming digital marketing and commerce enablement for automotive retailers, primarily focused on the US and Canadian markets. As you know, all the buzz in the market is about innovation, pure digital, buying cars online. But if you look at the actual transactions, 98% of car sales in the United States still happen with dealers and dealerships. And these family-owned, community-based businesses, they need the resources and infrastructure to be competitive in the digital universe. Auto Leadstar provides them with that technology and helps them really take that big leap forward. And it's truly a pleasure to be here and join this panel with you guys.
David?
Hi, yes, nice to be here. I'm David, the CTO at Link & Co. And for those of you who have not met us before, Link & Co., we describe ourselves as a mobility company with a car. Our mission is to change some things, change mobility experience for people driving cars, make it more sustainable, a better experience overall, and better for the economy as well.
Great. Danny?
Hi, I'm happy to be here and thank you for the opportunity. My name is Danny Shavit. I'm the CEO of David Lubinsky Ltd. Founded in 1936, David Lubinsky is Israel's sole importer of Peugeot, Citroën, Opel, and the S vehicles of the Stellantis Group, and the sole importer of MG vehicles of Sai Group from China. We are one of the country's leading privately held family businesses. Traditionally, we were selling cars via showrooms, which was the traditional way to do it. But about almost 3 years ago, we launched the MG brand in Israel, and we moved through a substantial transformation of the way we sell cars here in Israel with the MG brand that became the first mobile generation car. Mobile means two ways: selling cars via mobile and also mobility, which means that we put accessibility as the first thing for the customers, which means that we have only one showroom in Israel and all the rest is accessible to customers online and at their locations. As of today, AMG is the leading EV sold car in Israel thanks to this digital transformation. I'll be happy to share it with you later on.
Great. Aaron, David, Danny, welcome. And again, thank you for your time today. Now, let's start with the topic of digital retailing. There's no doubt more and more customer experiences, transactions, and expectations are being managed online. Let's start with you, Aaron. In your opinion, are consumers ready to buy larger ticket items like vehicles in a fully online environment?
Yeah, so I think it's a complex question. And Masa, as you pointed out in your introduction, the survey data really shows that consumers of cars, vehicles, which is typically the second largest purchase in a family's lifetime, they don't relate to that the same way they do to a pair of shoes that they're going to buy on Amazon or even a couch that they're going to grab off Groupon. There is interest, it seems, from observed behavior. Auto Lead Star sees millions of shoppers a year go through our system. We see that people still want to come in. They want to engage with the vehicle. They do want to drive it. They want to feel it, as you said. Moreover, there seems to still be an interest in knowing who stands behind the sale. This is also true of used vehicles. And they want to know that there's someone there who's trusted, who's vetted the vehicle, who stands behind it. And dealers are more and more realizing that, in this environment, they have to provide something beyond just a transaction. They have to provide an experience. They have to provide support. So we are seeing that there is still a preference writ large for in-person engagement. And I don't think that's particularly surprising. What I will say is that a lot more of the shopping happens online, and it goes all the way to the transaction at some points, like Donnie mentioned. But we tell dealers today that for their platforms, they really have to not be brick and mortar, nor do they just have to be totally all about clicks. They have to be click and brick. And if they're click and brick, they're going to get the best of both worlds and create that seamless experience all through the engagement of the shopper.
So seamless experience. Danny, I mean, you have that direct experience in the Israeli market. You talked about the MG brand. What's your perspective on this?
Actually, I want to support one of the things that you mentioned about the survey or the analysis that you made. Because what we found out, even though we have a seamless possibility to purchase a vehicle, we found that the best approach is something that we call phygital. Phygital is a combination between physical and digital. And in Hebrew, we call it physidigi, which means that always you combine both, which means that you allow the customer to move through a very, very digital and seamless process. But as soon as that he feels not confident or needs support or maybe needs a bit push in the process, then you have the physical support that comes either via test drive or a physical person who intervenes and helps him via the process and moves him with the process in order to bring it to the final point. And it works in both processes, like in the sales process and also in the after sales process. So the whole ecosystem, we call it a phygital ecosystem. That's the philosophy that drives us, which means a customer that is ready to move in, we call it the green line, which means without any involvement of any of our salespeople, will be able to do it. And he will get the cars seamlessly within 3 days from the days of the order. But anyone else will get the support required in order to bring him to the final point.
Thanks. Now, this blend of physical and digital is something that not only is we're seeing in the retailing and after sales experience, but also from a customer experience in the sense of thinking about the product itself and the extension to the services as well. David, I want to bring you into this part of the conversation around the seamlessness between product and the product experience and the services that are enabled. because today there's so much technology that is in vehicles, and we talked about electrification earlier, but electrification is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to all the technologies that are being applied. How do you see this opportunity?
Oh, it's a really good point, and it's so easy to see digital as moving the sale online, and I think I'd challenge that idea as much as I can. Really, digital done well is creating great customer experiences and using technology to keep them brilliant and consistent. And where it really adds benefit to the customer is when, exactly as you say, you can take it from the beginning, meeting the brand, creating an ID as you log onto a website. And of course, you want to meet people at a certain point. Well, they should recognize who you are and what your preferences are already, if possible. And then you've really cracked it, as you say. If you can carry on with that experience and you're logging into your car that you started with on the website, means that your profile already exists in the car and your Spotify playlist is already there. You're set up with parking applications so that you can make payments without having to touch a button. And all these little things mean that the consumer's life gets a little bit easier. And that little bit easier creates a great experience. And that great experience then locks them into your brand and gives you the feedback that you need to keep on progressing.
So this is really about changing the relationship with the consumer, isn't it, David? I mean, it's no longer just about, I'm here to sell you hardware, and you transact once in a lifetime and then off you go. Tell me a little bit more about the opportunity in terms of ability to enhance that relationship building aspect.
Yeah, you've really nailed it. So again, to use the word digital, people who've done digital, super successfully, the Ubers and the Apples, do two things. They change the business model, and changing the business model changes your behavior, what you're motivated to do, and they change the customer experience, as I've already said. So when you do that, I mean, our key offering in Europe, we don't try and sell anyone a car. We ask people to subscribe to mobility, and with that subscription, they get a car. And we look after the insurance and the maintenance and the servicing and the data and everything else around the car. Now, what that does, it motivates us to look after the customer better and to make sure our cars need servicing less. And at the same time, it means the consumer then is part of an ecosystem where they get better experiences. And as part of that ecosystem, we can plug it into other providers, as I mentioned, whether it's parking or being able to find shopping from speaking to your car. These things are all linked together with the driver profile, and where available, you shouldn't have to get your credit card out at a filling station or a charging point.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, Danny, from a retailer and distributor point of view, digitization, what does that do in terms of opportunities for enhancing relationship between a customer and a brand?
Actually, that's a great question, because it really touches the main point of the transformation. Because in the past, when the customer was in the search process for a car, he would shop for several windows and several showrooms to search for the best car, but really it was the best salesperson who will get his trust. That was the past. You wouldn't buy the best car. You would buy it from the most trustable salesperson that will sell it for you. That's the past. And now you want to build this confidence in a digital process, which means the whole search process is not physical anymore. You don't find and you don't look for anyone. You don't meet anyone in the process. You just gather data, make your analysis. And then finally, if in the past the customer required 2 or 3 visits in showrooms in order to close the deal, today it's 1 or less, because sometimes he wouldn't get to the showroom to close the deal. So the real challenge for us as a distributor is, how do you build confidence and build trust via this new relationship process? That's the main challenge, because you want the customer to find us trustworthy. You want other customers to be our ambassadors, because today everyone that tries to start the process of searching for a car will go to social media and ask about the car, the distributor, and even the specific guy that met him. So it's all fully transparent. So the way we measure it today, we don't measure only the number of cars we sell. We measure the rate of recommendation of the customer of the process and how high they recommend the process that they went through, because we trust that this customer should become an ambassador for us for the next customers that will go for this search process. So the challenge is totally different. It's not the car anymore. It's not the product itself.
Aharon, for your business and your target market really is about helping dealerships, create efficiency gains and transparency gains through new digital technology and so forth. How do you see this challenge and the opportunity at the same time?
Yeah, it's so interesting because we work with the dealers and mainly in the US and Canada, and we work with the brands, the car makers of it. And I always think of ourselves as translators. I mean, if someone asks me what is the essence of our company and our business, I say we're simple. We're a translation business, just like you would translate from Spanish to Chinese or from English to French. We translate from dealer to digital. There's 100 years of knowledge on how to transition transportation to consumers, which follows on 1,000 years of humans, 10,000 years of humans seeking more comfortable, effective, fast ways to transport, right? And so I think the auto industry really understands a lot about what consumers need and how they want to engage with their transportation. What's needed now, in particular for all these really important community businesses that employ so many millions of people around the world, what's needed is a transition of that insight into data, into infrastructure, into technology, akin to what happened with SMBs and enterprises more broadly in the end of the 90s and the early 2000s. So I just see this opportunity in many ways as a massive opportunity for community businesses and family-owned businesses that I think support a lot of value and social good to actually become digital and be successful against kind of some of the monopolizing forces that have pressured those types of businesses in the past. And that's what we see as our mission, really to give these folks what they need to be successful and be around in 10, 15 years selling transportation to consumers.
And as these new opportunities, digitally enabled and such, continue to kind of come out and new business models start to take shape, it puts more opportunities in the space of ecosystem as opposed to individual companies or individual contributors. David, maybe a question for you, as you think about what you're trying to do at Lynk & Co, et cetera, how important is this ecosystem and what new muscle do companies need to develop in order to become much more effective, both in terms of cooperation, with an eye towards co-opetition in some cases, as you think about new ways to build that new relationship with customers?
Crikey, yes. We've spent a lot of time and effort creating the platform, the capability, the technology to have an ecosystem. You can't make the ecosystem happen, but we hope we can be the place where it does. And if you think about automotive as a business model, as a value chain, think how many components you've got in there. You've got manufacturing, logistics, you've got retail, physical, virtual, website, you've got app, you've got a product, it's a car, you service it for 10 years. If you have that all in one ecosystem and you have the capabilities to make the customer unaware of what goes on in the background, you can provide all of the services and more that they would normally experience in a seamless way. And this again is what where is the ambition? The ambition is to make the experience better. I believe that if you make the experience even just a bit better than everywhere else, then you can create a strong relationship with the consumer, you create trust, and you create a dialogue with them. And if you have that, then it's on you to be able to bring the other services and capabilities into that ecosystem to give the customer the best experience. So let me give you two examples. We plan not to send anyone to get their car serviced. We plan to monitor the car, update it wherever possible over the air, and if it does need physical maintenance, we'll pick it up, take it to somewhere, have it repaired and bring it back. Well, just in that transaction, you've got pickup service, you've got valet, car cleaning, you've got the service center, and you can plug people into that value proposition quickly and easily if you've got the right ecosystem in the beginning to work with, and more. But I'll leave some space to other people.
That's fantastic. Yeah. So the ability to reshape the experience is something that is happening all around us. But from a product development standpoint, as we move forward, electrification is still a key part of the biggest change that's happening this decade. As we think about electrification, the first thing that comes to my mind is around sustainability and environmental, protecting the environment, so on and so forth. But the reality is, here in 2021, vast majority of consumers are still driving internal combustion engine vehicles. From a product standpoint or from a service and customer experience standpoint, David, how do we get customers to accelerate their thinking around, the adoption of electric vehicles, hybrid electrics, and so forth? How do you get them to think differently about vehicles and mobility?
This is such a hot topic in our industry, especially if you consider it from the OEM perspective, as we are. Your product development cycle, it's even when we do it quickly, we're in 3 years. So you're taking bets a long time ahead. And our experience with customers is fairly straightforward. In the main, they're happy to take an electric car. They love the idea and make it more sustainable and cheaper. But in many of the use cases, the range and their ability to charge prevents them from having that as a sole vehicle. And I think, we as an industry have to be working hand in hand with infrastructure. And for us in Europe, that's lots of different countries, let alone regions and areas and towns even, that need to get their infrastructure in the right place to make fully battery electric vehicles viable for all consumers in an urban environment. At the moment, our focus right now is on hybrid. And then what we try to do is make the car possible to use as an electric vehicle as much as any use case can. So we're 70 to 100 kilometers, we think, should be able to use it on a day-to-day basis in an urban environment as electric only. Our customers then get fully on board with the electric driving experience, but they don't have the problem with range anxiety. If infrastructure comes to solve the range anxiety, we can get rid of the ice at the front, as they say.
Yeah. Danny, you and I were talking prior to this panel about electric vehicles. From your perspective, right, as a retailer and a distributor, how do you accelerate? How do you get consumers there?
Actually, the main two challenges of this transformation are coming from two perspectives. The first one, how do you sell a vehicle which is expensive more than the parallel ICE car? ICE is internal combustion engine car. By, I would say, again, in Israel, the taxes are very high. So the difference between an ICE car and an EV car might get up to 25 to 30%. Okay. So how would you convince a customer to pay more in the beginning and to get back during the lifetime of the car, of the service? And that's why we changed the method, the way we sell the car, from selling an MSRP, as we call it, to selling a TCO. TCO is the total cost of ownership. So we trained all our personnel to sell via a different method. We sell a TCO. We don't sell an MSRP. So the MSRP is not the point. So that's one point. The second point is, how do you keep the relationship with the customer? Because with the ICE cars, the periods of service were, 15, 20,000 kilometers or 25,000 kilometers, every 25,000 kilometers. That was the frequency. Mm-hmm. With EVs, for some of them, you don't need any maintenance even for 80,000 kilometers. You don't have to replace brakes or filters or oils or whatever it is. So the second challenge is, how do you keep the contact or the relationship with the customer during this lifetime of the car? So these are the main two challenges, I would say, in this transformation. And the way we do it, we keep in contact with the customer via periodic activities that we proactively create in order to keep in contact with the customer and to support them and bring them in, because after 3 or 4 years, when they want to replace the car, we don't want them to forget us, because actually they don't remember who sold the car. They don't need the relationship as they needed it before. So these are the main two challenges today that we're handling.
Okay. Now, they say that time flies when you're having fun, and we're certainly having a lot of fun. But maybe I'll ask one last question to Aaron here, which is, as a startup, right? What is the biggest challenge facing new companies that are coming into this space, trying to, looking to capitalize on all this current momentum around digitization and transformational needs that are happening right now?
Yeah, I think any transitional moment brings with it the challenge of mindshare buy-in. For example, if you think about the automotive business, right, the typical retailer was used to folks showing up at the store, their vendors showing up, maybe bringing in food, that kind of regular cadence and check-in. When you move more to a SaaS model, right, software as a service model, and that's basically robots running the software and requiring the dealer to do a lot of work, right, as an example. So I think for us, the focus has really been on understanding that transitional moment, that you have one of the largest industries and economies in the world moving to a whole new way of doing marketing and sales enablement. And that process is going to require some transition, similar to when Salesforce emerged in 2000 and businesses went from using on-prem stuff to using cloud stuff, similar to when Shopify emerged and SMBs got used to having this kind of platform behind them for doing digital retail. So we see this as a wonderful opportunity. It's an amazing transition. Dealers are really embracing with a lot of enthusiasm kind of a digital infrastructure. And we're also seeing the OEM brands embracing that. They're thinking more about how do they operate in a scaled way? How do they use technology to support the dealers in the local markets at that tier? And all of that creates really a very kind of just fruitful environment for digital innovation, which is what we're doing as a startup.
Well, I want to express my huge thanks to our panelists today and to the EcoMotion audience for your time. It's an exhilarating time that we live in, to witness such transformation across the entire mobility ecosystem. And again, just as a reminder, the 2021 Deloitte Global Automotive Consumer Study can be found at deloitte.com/autoconsumer. So with that, I'd like to wrap up. Again, thank you to all of you for tuning in. And again, thank you to the panelists for a wonderful conversation today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.